Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we got another tier list. I've been enjoying these lately, and some of you seem to be enjoying these lately. So we're going to go ahead and do the one we have to do. We're going to be ranking the Doctors. Now, I will only be doing the 1st through the 14th Doctor. We haven't seen enough of JLBWHO to really say about him yet, though I will say I enjoyed him in the Christmas special. I thought he was good in it, but it's not enough to give him a judgment on, and for some reason they have the Meta Crisis Doctor on here. Don't see the point. We're not going to rank that. They don't have Joe Martin's Doctor on here. And I like Joe Martin's Doctor. I think she'd be a solid B for me. I'd possibly put her higher if we got more of her, but due to her limited screen time, I think I would have the Fugitive Doctor in B, because I do like her a lot. So, we of course have C for me is of course average. Most of you know this, so if somebody's in C, that just means they're average, which isn't bad. Average is just that. Average. Anything above C is above average. Anything below C is below average, though not necessarily bad. I consider D just a little below average. With that in mind, we're going to get started. I have them here in order with the first Doctor, who is a solid A. I like the first Doctor. The more I watch of the Hartnell era, the more I love the Hartnell era. Now, when I first really started working on the channel, I was very open about how whenever I talked about the first Doctor era or whenever I was ranking Doctors, etc., how I hadn't seen a lot of the first Doctor's era at the time. That was always kind of my weak point with Classic Who, is I hadn't seen a lot of the first Doctor stuff. I had only seen about 7 or 8 stories at the time. Now I've seen almost all of his era. Literally the only 5 stories I haven't seen are from his era. And I've really grown to love his era, especially his historicals. I've really grown to like him as the Doctor. I think he's a very strong Doctor. I love his story arc and how he grows softer and more heroic over the course of his run. And plus, he has some really good companions, especially in Ian and Barbara and Vicky. I love Ian, Barbara, and Vicky a lot. So I really feel comfortable putting him here in A tier. Troughton, for me, is S tier. My top 3 Doctors are just amazing, and Troughton is my second favorite Doctor. He is absolutely amazing. If Troughton hadn't been so good in the role, Doctor Who never would have lasted this long, because he's the one that proved that the concept of regeneration could work and that you could replace the Doctor with a new actor and have it come off successfully. He just becomes this character so well, and all of his little mannerisms, all of his little quirks, what he does with his body language, what he does with his facial expressions, and the way he says his lines, just these little things he does that just, he doesn't feel like an actor playing a character. He feels like the character. He just feels like the Doctor. Plus, he has a really strong era for the most part. I mean, Dominators are in there. There's a couple duds, but I love the Troughton era a lot. I actually prefer it over the Hartnell era, and I love the Hartnell era. And then Troughton also has really good companions. One of my favorite companions in Jamie, and I also like Zoe a lot as well. So he has a really strong companion team, and I just think he's a really strong Doctor. Pertwee, for me, is also S tier, who was my second favorite Doctor for a long time. Troughton has kind of jumped him slightly, but Pertwee is still my third favorite Doctor. Part of this is my nostalgic attachment to his era. My earliest memories are of 3 and 4, so I'm quite fond of them. Pertwee is a little more serious, I think, than I would traditionally like Doctors. But again, I'm so used to him playing the Doctor that I love the way he does it. I love the fact that he's a comedian at heart, John is, but he plays it straight here most of the time. I love the way he commands a room. He has this presence to him. I love his disregard for authority figures, his lack of patience with authority figures I love. Also, again, the stories are so strong in this era. He has great companions, such strong writing. It's a perfect storm of everything coming together for not only his era, but just for his Doctor. I think he's a really strong Doctor. There are no misses in the Pertwee era. My least favorite story is Claws of Axos, and it's still easily watchable. I don't dislike it. It's not one I go back to a lot. But if I was with a friend and he's like, I want to try this Claws of Axos, I'm like, all right, let's put it on. And that's probably the only era of Doctor Who I can say that about. Even Troughton, I wouldn't want to watch, the animated version of Fury. And even Tom, of course, I wouldn't want to sit through Power of Kroll. Anything else in their eras is probably good. But John does not have a story I can't sit through and enjoy, even Claws. Of course, the Fourth Doctor, also S tier. I promise they're not all S tier. But these are my top 3 Doctors, and they are miles above just anything. I love Tom Baker. Tom Baker is the Doctor. He's the gold standard for me. The Doctor that every other Doctor is measured against. He's a legend in the role. He still holds the record for being the Doctor the longest with 7 seasons. He just is the. I mean, it's hard to tell where Tom Baker ends and the Doctor begins, because Tom Baker really was just being Tom Baker. What do you think of Tom Baker's acting as the Fourth Doctor? I'm sitting here going, acting? He just is the Doctor. He is such a good Doctor. Again, such a strong era. I love 70s Doctor Who. He had great companions, great stories, very few duds in the Fourth Doctor era, strong seasons, no bad seasons. Just all the quirks that make the Fourth Doctor the Doctor are just they were. Oh, I don't even know how to put it into words. I love Tom Baker's Doctor. My favorite Doctor. When I think about the Doctor, he's usually the first one that pops in my head. Or if somebody says Doctor Who to me, he's the first Doctor that pops in my head. Peter Davison. I'm just gonna say C. I mean, I tend to like his era. It's kind of a mixed bag, but I like a lot of his stories. I like Peter Davison just fine. I think he's average. He has stories where he excels more than others, of course, where he's really putting in a performance. But I think he's a little bland in the role. Like he didn't quite know what he wanted to do with it. Like it took him a while to pick a direction. He's fine. His companions are kind of a mixed bag, although I like them for the most part. Because I love Tegan and Nyssa. Turlough's fine. Adric's a little bothersome. And the stories, again, good ones and bad ones. But just his performance most of the time, everything balanced out. He's just kind of average to me. If I had to describe him in one word, it would just be average. Colin, the Sixth Doctor. I like season 22 a lot, but season 23. You know what? I want to put him here, but it feels a little disingenuous, especially having heard the Big Finish stuff. If I'm factoring Big Finish into it, he'd probably sit here without it here. So let's just average those out and say C. I flip-flop back and forth on who I like between Colin and Peter. Colin gets hurt a lot from Twin Dilemma. I know it's post-regeneration trauma, and there are even things I like about Twin Dilemma. I don't think it's complete rubbish, but the way the Doctor acts in Twin Dilemma, it's awful. It's so awful. It's so bad. It's so bad. But I like him in season 22, and for the most part, he's a little rough around the edges, even in season 23. But he definitely has those moments where he shines in the role. And Big Finish, having heard several of his Big Finish stories now, and I will factor those in, it is nice to see how his Doctor has matured and what Colin can do with the right material. So I'll give him C. Sylvester McCoy. Can't I just put him here? You know what? I'm going to say A. I liked him. He has that occasional times when he goes into that falsetto voice that hurts me when he's yelling that really pulls me out of the story. I love Sylvester McCoy, but I do feel his acting is a little more limited than some of the other actors who played the character. But he still has times when he nails it. He has times when he doesn't, like in Ghostlight when he's... I'm sitting there going... But then he has that great speech in Battlefield, that great speech in Happiness Patrol. Excuse me. Where he just nails it. He just absolutely nails it. I tend to like his era. I think it's the most underrated era in classic Doctor Who. I'm not a big fan of Mel, but then he gets Ace. I love Ace. He has Glitz show back up. I like Glitz. And his era as a whole has good stories. There's not really a lot of bad stories. The only story he has I find unwatchable is Delta and the Bannerman. The others are varying degrees of okay to great, or to masterpiece, I should say. And plus, he has a couple quintessential stories every Doctor Who fan needs to see, like Remembrance and Curse of Fenric and Ghostlight, for example. Every Doctor Who fan needs to see those. Solid A tier for me. Paul McGann. This is really difficult. I'm gonna say A, but I need to get more of him. Now, I have listened to some of his audios. That's one of the reasons I go with A. I love him in the TV movie. He's one of the best parts of the TV movie. Easy. Probably the best part of the TV movie. He's great in Night of the Doctor. He's great in what little bit of time we get him in Power. And I've enjoyed his audios. I've listened to Chimes of Midnight. I've listened to Storm Warning. I've listened to his audio version of Shada. So he is a good doctor. I just really wish we'd get him back on screen some more. We really need that. John Hurt, I really can't. I can't put him any higher than C because we don't get much of him. I've read one of his novels, which is really good. But it's great we got John Hurt to be the Doctor because John Hurt's amazing. But he doesn't get a lot to do even in Day of the Doctor. He spends most of the time playing kind of third fiddle to 10 and 11. So while I like him, I feel like we don't get enough of him. So what we get of him is good, but we need more of him, which sadly John's passed away. So he just kind of falls in average, even though as a character I'd put him maybe in B. The Ninth Doctor. Gotta be A. I like the Ninth Doctor a lot. Eccleston plays this role so well, and how he goes back and forth between being serious and being a comedian, and I love how he can flip-flop from them on a dime. Plus, his series is really good. Series 1 is a good series. Not a lot of misfires there. I mean, all the stories are easily watchable. And him and Rose click really well together. Him and Jack click really well together. I can't talk today. I really like this kind of darker version of the Doctor. Plus, he's got two of the best episodes ever made of the show, which are The Empty Child, The Doctor Dances, and Dalek, which is one of the best Dalek stories ever made, if not the best, honest and truly. The 10th Doctor is a solid B for me. I liked 10 a lot. He was my solid number 2 for a long time. He's a little too human for me. Now, he has a really good era. Series 2 is a bit of a mixed bag, but Series 3 and 4 are really strong, with Series 3 being my favorite of Modern Who. I like the 10th Doctor. It makes sense for him to be a little more human since Earth is kind of his adopted home at this point. So I can kind of understand that. He's got great companions. Series 2 Rose is okay, but I like Martha and Donna. And Tennant's a great actor in the role. I just don't like some of the sad Doctor stuff when he's always sad. How many times does Tennant say, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry"? We get it. You're sorry. We get it. And then the whole romance thing with Rose is a little off-putting on rewatch. I don't go back to his era a lot now. It's looking at it in hindsight. I just can't put him any higher than B right now. I just can't. I miss some of the alienness that some of the other doctors that are higher have to them. He feels much more human than they do. Matt Smith is solid A for me. Now, Matt's era is a mixed bag. Series 5 is easily his best. Series 6 is easily his weakest, even though there's some good stuff going. And Series 7 is a mixed bag. But I like Matt's Doctor a lot. He does a good job of playing the young man in an old man's body. And a lot of times in his performance, you can see the giddy young man there, but you can also see the world-weary, been-through-a-lot old man in there. Matt Smith is a very good actor with that. He has some good companions. I like Amy and Rory. I actually really like Clara with him. I thought Clara was really good with Matt. And he has, again, while his era is a mixed bag, he still has some good episodes. I have a lot of fun with Matt's Doctor. And Matt always just looked like he was having fun with the role. And I can respect that. Capaldi, solid B. Why do I have the 12th Doctor only in B? Capaldi is one of the best actors to ever play the Doctor, let's be clear. But his type of Doctor isn't my favorite, especially since his Doctor changes from series to series. His Doctor in Series 8 is different than he is in Series 9, is different than he is in Series 10. It's almost like it's 3 different incarnations. I know some people are like, well, he's got an arc. But most of the time, this arc seems to happen off camera between seasons. The end of Series 8, he's kind of one way. The beginning of Series 9, he's another way. End of Series 9, he's one way. Beginning of Series 10, he's another way. And I get between 9 and 10, there is some time that's passed. So you can't explain that to time passing. I love Series 10 Capaldi. Series 10 Capaldi is S tier for me, like S tier. But Series 8 Capaldi is probably like D tier. And Series 9 Capaldi, I don't even know where I would put that. So averaging all of these different versions of Capaldi out, he just comes into B for me. His era is a mixed bag. It just is, more so than any era. While his and Master Moffat era is just a mixed bag. It just really is. Series 8, 9, and 10 are all mixed bags. There's some good stuff in them, some truly amazing stuff in them, but there's also some of the worst Doctor Who crap ever, including the worst Doctor Who episode of all time is in this, in Peter Capaldi's run. So that can't be ignored. And then his companions, I don't like Clara. I like Bill. I like Nardole. I don't like Clara, and he has Clara way too long. So I feel like all of that kind of hurts it as well. Solid B for me. Whittaker, no, I'm not even exaggerating. Whittaker has moments of brilliance. They're not enough to bump her into this. They're not. And I know the sexist pricks are going to come out and be like, you're just saying that because it's a woman. No, I like Jo Martin's Doctor. She's a solid B for me. Has nothing to do with that. It's the fact, and I like Jodie Whittaker as an actress. I like Broadchurch. I like her in that episode of Black Mirror she's in. She's just miscast in the role. She's just miscast, and she has probably some of the worst writing the show's ever had. And that's not to say the Chibnall era is all bad. There are some great episodes in the Chibnall era. I'm saying that right now. Chibnall era has some really good episodes. Matter of fact, Series 12 is the most consistently good since Series 5. Let's be honest. Even if none of it quite reaches some of the highs of some of the series in between it. But there's some good episodes in there. Even Series 11 has 3 episodes I like. Not a big fan of Flux, but hey, what can you do around a giant pandemic? Her companions are a mixed bag. I don't dislike any of her companions, but a lot of them, like Dan, never really had the time to be fleshed out. I feel like it was very much a crowded TARDIS, which doesn't work in like in the 2020s. You just can't have that many people. There's not enough time to flesh them out. There wasn't even enough time for that in the 80s. You just can't make that work like you did in the 60s. It just doesn't. It just doesn't work. So yeah, I feel pretty comfortable putting 13 there. I think the writing lets her down. I think The Timeless Children was just a terrible, terrible idea for reasons I've stated numerous times on the channel. I don't like the Timeless Children's stupid recon, or retcon, I should say, excuse me, stupid retcon. The companions, again, don't get enough to do because they're just, none of them have the opportunity to be fleshed out. And I just, aside from rare occasions, I feel like Whittaker never clicks with the role. Her character often feels on the back foot, trying to keep up with what's going on around her. And that's just not the Doctor for me. And the 14th Doctor, I'm gonna say B. I like the 14th Doctor a little more than the 10th. I feel like he's a more mature version of the 10th for the most part. But he still has that 10th Doctor humanness to him and that angst and that, I've been through so much, I'm so tired. I'm tired. I need a vacation to him. He just looks wore down and on his last leg. Now, I actually enjoy his ending. The bit with the bi-generation, I'm fine with. And the fact he kind of gets to retire. Maybe he eventually becomes the curator. Who knows? That'd be a cool way to set that up. I don't mind that. But just all the problems I have with the 10th Doctor, I have with the 14th Doctor as well. Because they're very similar, even though, again, 14 seems like a more grown-up adult version of the 10th, if that makes sense. And that's how I would rank them. And a lot of people are going to see this, and they are going to come at me with torches and pitchforks. But I think these are better Doctors. These are definitely my S tiers, my 3 favorite Doctors. There's a huge gap between them and any of the others. I love these 3. But I think all of these are solid A's as well. And these just kind of fall here for different reasons. So I want to know what you think of this list and how you would rank them. So comment down below and let me know. Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button as well. Also, all the other fun stuff, links to the Patreon are down in the description. Several different tiers there to choose from. I also have a P.O. box down there. Link to my Amazon wish list is down there, which I've added something to recently. I added Ambassadors of Death to. I really wanted to rewatch Ambassadors of Death again. I haven't watched it in a long time. I've only watched it once or twice. I've been really wanting to rewatch it, and two, I want to compare how good episode 1 looks to the others, because I know episode 1 is the original surviving master, whereas the other episodes are not. I want to do a video comparing episode 1 to the rest of them, just so you can see the difference between something on a surviving master and stuff that's had to be stuff that's had to have been recovered in other ways. So that's 2 good videos I want to get out of that. Probably more than 2, since I would probably do individual reviews for Ambassadors of Death as well. So that's on there if that's something you're interested in sending. Want to give a shout out to some of my top tier patrons, Stephen Crane, Colin Coney, and Finn Perkins. I do appreciate their support, as I do the support of all of my patrons, and the P.O. box is down there as well. Most importantly, as always, thank you for watching.